there's so many like different things that go into fighting. You know, it's not just physical. Of course it is, obviously. You have to be physically ready. But once you surpass that, once you guys are all on the same level physically, you know, then it becomes a mental game. You know, are you mentally sharp? Can you deal with the media? Can you deal with all the outside noise? Can you deal with all the inside noise in your head?
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the School of Greatness podcast. We've got Michelle Waterson in the house.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I'm glad you're here. We met in Austin through Aubrey Marcus, and we met really quickly and got to know each other in a vulnerable way because you shared some things about your life through a poetry, actually, which we did a poetry workshop with InQ, who's been on the show. And so it was cool to see that side of you. And you are a UFC fighter who beats women up for a living.
I try to.
You try to.
I try to.
Exactly. Yeah. My first question, I'm curious, as a fighter, what has it taught you about femininity and masculinity?
Oh.
Because you're a mother and a wife as well. So how do you navigate all that?
I guess just I've never looked at myself like, you know, I'm super prideful for being a female in a predominantly male-dominant sport, but I've never separated myself. I always just looked at myself as a fighter, you know, and I feel like the minute you do separate yourself is when you start to, like, you know, create separation. So, you know, all my teammates, they don't look at me as a girl, they look at me as their fighter, and we train right along each other, and we sweat and we bleed and we cry together, and we become family, and that's just how I've always looked at it.
Right. What is it about fighting that makes you love it?
Well, I grew up doing martial arts. I have an older brother, and
you're karate black belt, right?
Yeah, I black belt in American freestyle karate, and I've done wushu and kempo, and my older brother, you know, I wanted to be like him, and we grew up watching Karate Kid and Ninja Turtles.
Ninja
I
Turtles.
just showed my daughter like the original Karate Kid, and they loved it.
Was she watching the new one?
She was watching the new one first.
No, the new one on YouTube. Have you seen this?
No.
The Kobe Kai, or whatever it's called. It's
no.
Like the Karate Kid. What's his name? What's the main actor's name?
The
Karate Kid.
The new guy or the old guy?
The original Karate Kid. What's his name?
Jeez, I don't know.
He's been a part of so many like memes and pop culture. I forget his name too. But anyways, they've come back and filmed the original Karate Kid versus the bad guy, whatever the other kid who like swept the leg, Daniel, right?
Yeah.
There's a YouTube series of them 30 years later competing against each other.
No way.
And they both have their own like studios. Like, it's crazy. Yeah.
I have to look that up.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've seen the trailers.
Okay.
Anyways, you used to watch Karate Kid, Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
And you wanted to be a Ninja Turtle?
I wanted to be a Power Ranger, actually.
Power Ranger?
A Power Ranger, yeah.
Oh.
But, you know, so my career as a martial artist kind of evolved, and when I became an adult, it cost money to compete, and I needed to make money. And I was going to college, and I was actually working at Hooters. I was a waitress at Hooters, paying my way through college, and I was also doing these side gigs, and I became a ring girl for for like a local MMA fight. Yeah, and I'd never seen MMA before, but I was so intrigued, and I was watching these guys fight inside this cage, and I was walking around the cage with the little number, and I remember thinking to myself, man, that looks a lot more fun, like inside there, yeah. And I was telling the promoter that I had a martial arts background and I'd love to get into it, and he kind of laughed it off. And one of the guys that was actually fighting in the small promotion overheard me, and he fights for the UFC now, is Donald Cerrone. And so he overheard me and came to my work and just was like, if you're serious about training, get your ass in the gym. And, you know, and it was awesome.
So you were a ring girl in a bikini walking around showing like what round it is.
Yeah.
Said, I want to be in there and punching people, not walking around in heels
Yeah.
and bikini.
Well, it was just like, it kind of just like all fell together, right? Like I grew up doing martial arts. I was kind of lost. Like in college, like I was really heavily involved in high school.
In martial arts.
In martial arts, but
and...
yeah, but just like academically. And then went to college and it just, nothing felt right. I was really lost.
You weren't sure like what major you wanted to do or what you wanted to do after?
Yeah.
You didn't have like a vision for your life?
Nothing. I felt lost and I had good grades and everything, but it just...
No direction.
Yeah. And so...
Where'd you go to school?
I went to DU.
DU? Mm-hmm. What's DU?
University of Denver.
Okay. Mm-hmm. University of Denver. Got it.
Or Denver University.
Got it. And so throughout school, did you graduate then?
I didn't.
You did not?
I didn't. I
So
stopped.
you were a ring girl and a waitress in college, and then decided to stop and start training.
Yeah. I like I said, I was lost. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. Spending a lot of money going to classes and just feeling like it was taking me nowhere. So my mom and I went to Thailand to visit family. And when we were out there, I was like, hey, we're in the motherland of Muay Thai. I might as well, get some work in. And they kicked my butt.
Wow.
They kicked my butt for 2 weeks and they laughed at me because we trained like outside on a concrete floor and my feet blistered up and they said that they laughed at me and said that I was weak and
too soft.
Yeah, too soft, and it fired me up and I wanted to. It was just something like it lit that fire back in me and it just reminded me of what my true path was, which is martial arts, like, so it was like I just had this vision in my head that I had to finish high school. I finished high school top 10 in my class and I had to go to college and then I had to find a fiance and get married and have this white picket fence with 2 kids, and I thought that's what I had to do, and it just wasn't.
Wow. So after that 2 weeks in Thailand, had you been to Thailand before?
Yeah, when I was younger.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
After that 2 weeks of training, what was the next step? Did you go back and train more with them, or did you start training in Colorado, or what was the next thing?
I went back and I continued to go to school, and then I just decided after the semester was over that it wasn't for me, so I dove completely into fighting. Really? And I started taking smokers and
what's a smoker?
A smoker's like kind of, it's an amateur fight, but they call them smokers because back in the day they probably still have them, but
like smoking before the fight or whatever.
Well, they do them in like shady places like bars and strip clubs and stuff like that, and there's like smoke all over.
Take the beer off the table, put the ring up, let's go.
Yeah. So I did a couple smokers, and maybe like 6 months later.
Did you win those?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah, I won some, I lost some, but that's your amateur career. That's where you learn, And way back then, there was really no amateur career. There was really no women fighting it,
When was this? What year?
I turned pro in 2007.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So when was the amateur then? How long was that from?
I probably fought amateur for about a year and a half.
Okay. Mm-hmm. 2005.
Yeah.
2006. Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
So you were doing that. There really wasn't many women fighting at the time. Mm-hmm. Except for maybe some smokers in the backyard or something.
Yeah, it was very taboo.
Yeah.
It was very taboo for women to be fighting, and
were there women in the UFC at that time?
No.
Really?
At that time, Dana White was seriously against women being in the UFC. He would even say it publicly, women don't belong in the cage.
Wow.
And there'll never be a place for women in the UFC.
He said that?
Yeah.
Never?
Yeah.
When did that change?
When he met Ronda.
So when did Ronda do her first fight in the UFC?
I don't know. I don't know the date specifically. I remember the event because it was huge for women's MMA to be able to have that platform.
What was the vision for you then? If there was no women in UFC at the time that you were doing amateur fighting, where could you go? What was the next step after the smoker events? What was the platform?
So there were a couple different avenues that I could have gone, you know, but I do remember moving out to Albuquerque and living in the dorms of Jackson Winklejohn. And when I say dorms, it really wasn't a dorm. It was just kind of like a hole in the wall upstairs. I slept on a bunk bed next to the fridge. But when I finally got my apartment, I remember putting up a vision board. And at that time, Dana White was no way. But putting up a vision board and still like fighting for the UFC up on the vision board, you know, fighting for the UFC. And there were a couple different things, but yeah, that was one of them. And it was just kind of like, maybe not now, but eventually it'll get there, you know? So that was one of my goals. But also, like I said, I grew up watching martial arts flicks and stuff like that. I was like, man, I could be a Power Ranger. I could be a Street Fighter. I could, you know, do this and that. But really, the reason why I fought is because it really forced me to face my fears. Like I'm not a confrontational person. And, but fighting forced me to deal with like my fears and the conflict. Like once they close the cage behind you, you can't like turn around and be like, okay, now I'm done. I'm just gonna get out of here. And you know, like
you got to go to the end.
Yeah, being afraid, like everybody's afraid to get hit. Everybody's afraid of losing. Everybody's afraid of getting embarrassed. Getting hurt. You know, bruising their ego. Just so for me, it was a lot of things that I was like overcoming personally in fighting.
What was your biggest fears?
That I wasn't good enough, that I didn't belong, that those are probably the two. Those are probably the two biggest fears.
That you weren't good enough and didn't belong in MMA or in general?
Probably in general, yeah.
And what's the biggest fear today?
I'd have to say my biggest fear now is how, like, getting in my own way, I guess, is like, can I handle, am I good enough to be successful? That's probably one of my biggest fears.
And what do you define as success?
Yeah, I mean, that's something I'm still trying to figure out now, you know, especially having my daughter. After having my daughter, I'm just very content with my life because she is my everything, you know, and I have a great husband. And so that's kind of like a struggle too, is like, well, if I'm content in life, then what am I pushing forward towards? Like, why do I have this like hole that I feel the need to fill, you know?
You still have that hole?
Yeah, for sure. You know, I think that there were still some things that I want, you know, in my career.
What do you want?
I want to be a champion. I want to be able to, like, when I think about the martial artists that I watched growing up, it was always like, wow, I want to do that. That's a cool move. I want to do that. And I want to be able to be that person for somebody else. I want to leave a legacy to where people talk about me like, yeah, she's a beast, you know, like she's an amazing martial artist. I don't know, like, to be able to do that. And one of the reasons why I got into martial arts is because of my instructor. He really was in my life at a pivotal moment, you know, and so he changed my life for the better. And it would be nice to know that I can do that for others.
Yeah. What does it take to be a champion in the UFC?
I think you have to have a really strong, genuine, deep confidence. Like, it has to be like deep in your core. It has to be unshakable. You know,
so you can't doubt yourself at all.
You can't doubt yourself at all, and you have to you have to be 2 steps ahead of everybody else. And
what does that mean?
just like, 'cause there's so many like different things that go into fighting. You know, it's not just physical. Of course it is, obviously. You have to be physically ready. But once you surpass that, once you guys are all on the same level physically, you know, then it becomes a mental game. You know, are you mentally sharp? Can you deal with the media? Can you deal with all the outside noise? Can you deal with all the inside noise in your head? Can you deal with all of the other circumstances surrounding you as you are training for this fight? You know, there's just so many different elements that go into it, and everything has to fall into place for you to win that one night.
Yeah, one moment.
One moment.
Change everything. What do you do to silence the conversation that holds you back when it comes up?
I take a deep breath and I tell myself confidence. And it just calms me, you know. I feel like we all have that voice in our head, that like inner critic, you know, that will, and in my mind it's my mom, like, what you doing, you know? My mom is just like super like critical and
really?
Like has always, but I think it's just culturally, like that's how they raise their kids. It's kind of like that negative motivation, put the chip on your shoulder, you know. But I've been working a lot with a sports psychologist, and he explains it to me in a way that, like, the same emotions you get when you're fearful are the same emotions you get when you're excited. We just perceive them differently, you know. So anytime I do get nervous or afraid or anxious, I just take a deep breath and I tell myself confidence, and it reminds me to use that energy, that nervous, mad energy, and transform it into good energy that's going to feel me, energy that's going to build confidence within me, and energy that's going to allow me to use it towards my benefit.
From the moment you get the announcement for a new fight, and they say, okay, you're fighting in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, whenever it is, how long does it usually take?
It depends. Usually, fight camp is usually anywhere between 6 and 10 weeks.
6 and 10 weeks. Okay, say 8 weeks away. We announced this, here's the date, 2 months. What's the most challenging part for you physically and mentally from the moment you get the phone call to the moment you step into the ring?
It's kind of like, it goes in waves. I think at the very beginning when the fight gets announced, it's like, it's go time, you know. So then just trying to get your nerves in order, watching tape, trying to break down your opponent. And then you kind of just get into a rhythm of fight camp, and you forget about all that stuff. And then you start, the clock starts ticking down, and you start losing days, and you start to think, if you've trained enough, you start to second guess yourself. Do I need to train harder? And then all the interviews roll in, and they start asking you questions of things you never even thought about until they start asking you, well, you know, Tisha's really good she's a power puncher, and these are things you don't even think about. And then they say that, and it brings up that self-doubt again. And it really is, it's always, I'd say at the beginning of fight camp, it's nervous, and then it dies down, and then it comes back up, and then come fight week, if you've prepped yourself both physically. For me, I feel like the more physically ready you are, the more mentally content you can be, because
you know you put in the work.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And only you know that, right? If you didn't put in the work, you can lie to the media, you can lie to everybody else, you could try to put on a show and smile and say that you're ready and you're the fittest you've ever been, but only you know yourself if you've put in that time, you know?
Yeah.
So for me, like, I'm most confident when I know I've put in the time, but it's not just like, it's not just putting in the time, it's actually being present in those moments when I do put in the time. Because you can, right, it's like quality versus quantity, because you can have good workout sessions, but you weren't there.
Yeah, you weren't present.
And you weren't present.
And intentional with every rep.
Yeah. Or you can have workout sessions where you are present, maybe not so many, but they mean more because you were there in the moment.
Right. In your opinion, what does it mean to respect your opponent? And how can you be respectful to your opponent when you're fighting them and pounding their face in the ground?
That's a hard one. That is a hard one because, like I said, like I'm a people pleaser. I'm not like trash talker. I'm not good at talking.
You okay?
But it's a fine line, and I think it depends on the person, really. There have been fights where I have given my opponent too much respect and maybe subconsciously felt like they deserved the win over me.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because of their status, because of their rankings, because I knew them personally. You know, and that's hard. You have to shelf that. You have to shelf that. You have to say, I respect you, you know, but at the end of the day, you and I are both getting in here to take each other's heads off. And if I don't get into the cage to do that, then I'm doing you a disservice.
You're doing her a disservice.
Yeah, because I'm not giving her my 100%. You know, I'm not giving her my true warriors. Like, you know, it's like, oh, like
I'll take
when,
it easy on you.
Yeah, like when you're like playing with your little sister or little brother, and they tell you no punching, so you kind of like scale it back. Like, you're doing your opponent disservice when you do that, and you know, that's how I've had to look at it. I've had to look at. I've had to take my opponent out of the equation, like
your feelings for them,
yeah.
your care for them, your.
I had to go into the octagon and tell myself that I deserve to win because I've put in all the time, I've put in all the work, you know. And whatever happens after that happens.
Yeah.
Kind of.
What has your biggest losses taught you about yourself?
I guess probably just the most obvious one is that there's always somebody bigger and badder than you, you know? And sometimes you can be 100% ready for something and still fail.
Really? Was there a time where you felt like you were so prepared, you were gonna win, and then you didn't win? Really?
Yeah.
How's that feel?
Like crap. Like crap. It's so like, you know, like losing in front of millions of people. It's kind of like, you know, a nightmare that like haunts you. You know, when you win, the high is so high. And when you lose, it's just incredibly low. And I think that's probably another reason why we do it is because of those like endorphin rushes. But it's funny because when you win, you don't really take the time to break apart your performance and see what you did well and see what you didn't do well. But when you lose, it's like you go back and you relive the moment over and over and over and over again. And what if I did this differently? What if I did that differently? Was it because of the fight? Was it because of my weight cut? Was it because things that happened outside of my fights? And you start to like spiral out of control of all these what ifs. And I remember talking to my coach about one of my losses and trying to figure out why I lost, really. And I was talking to him and I was like, what if I did this differently? And what if I did that? And he just stopped me and he said, Peanut, like, that's what they call me at the gym, Peanut. You just went left instead of right. Like, leave it at that. Yeah, like, leave it at that. Because if you keep trying to do this to yourself, like, you're going to take away the good that you did in the fight, and you're going to stop believing in yourself. You know, it was just a split second of you being
Right.
being in the wrong place at the wrong time, you know. So that was kind of like a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah.
But
How do you manage the emotions up and down?
I think you just kind of have to ride the wave.
Mm-hmm.
You ride the wave, and you have to know that they're going to come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there any fighter, men or women, that manage the emotions really well that you're aware of, where they're not too high and they're not too low?
Mm-hmm. I'd have to say the girl that I look up to the most when it comes to fighting, and also just in life in general, is probably Holly Holm.
She's pretty good with managing emotions.
She's very like even keel. She's like very. She never, you know, gets ahead of herself. She's very humble. She doesn't. You know, she dethroned Ronda Rousey, and still after the fact was very humble about her win. Never talked smack about her, even though all throughout the press conferences leading up to the fight, Ronda was just putting her down left and right. Holly never, you know,
Never put her down?
never put her down, even
Really?
after the fact.
That's pretty impressive.
Never put her down. And I've also seen Holly get knocked out cold
You have.
in a fight and muster up the humility to go to the press conference and congratulate her opponent.
Wow.
And then come into the gym on Monday and train.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, she's an amazing woman.
Wow.
She really is.
What's the biggest lesson you've learned from her?
To do. She just does. No questions. You know what I mean? She's just a doer.
She's not analyzing it or being fearful. She's like, okay, well, I'm going to do it anyways.
She's a worker, you know? She, win or lose, she continues to trek forward and has that belief in herself that she is great, you know?
Yeah. What was the most challenging emotional wave you had to experience leading up into a fight? That was personal. That wasn't about the fight.
Yeah, I'd have to say was 2 fights ago when I was getting ready to fight Tisha Torres. So my fight got announced. There was a lot of great things happening. Her and I are like neck and neck in the rankings. My husband and I just put money down for a brand new house. And then we get a phone call from my husband's mom telling us that his dad got in a really bad car accident. And I mean, that's all we knew. You know, it was the beginning of our fight camp, and usually we don't travel or do anything. Once fight camp hits, we're just focused.
Yeah.
But there was just something in her voice that we knew something was wrong. So we packed up our stuff and drove out. So they live in El Paso, it's about 3.5 hours out, and we drove out, and she's just like very frantic and talking to her and you know how the doctors are. Sometimes when stuff like that happens, they can't sugarcoat what has happened. You know, they have to give you the facts factually so that you can deal with it moving forward. And the doctors told her that he would never walk again. And there was just like a numb feeling, you know. It was just like incredible high to like we didn't even know what to do, really. Like, I think the saddest part about it all is that like Josh's parents are like, you know, they had him when she was 16 and they'd been together. Like, that's all they knew. That's all they know. They know each other and they're like madly in love with each other, and that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with him, is meeting his family and seeing the love that they had for each other. It's just like always going out on the weekends and dancing and partying, and to think that 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 he would never walk again, you know. And so, but Josh is kind of like the rock of their family. And so I could tell that it was bothering him, but he had to stay strong because of the circumstances. And so he has a little brother, 21 years. He's going into 6th grade, and all this stuff happens. And so we don't know how long he's going to be in the hospital for. We don't know anything, but we have to pick up the pieces. So Jaden comes back to Albuquerque with us, and we enroll him in school. But while all this stuff is happening, I'm getting ready for my fight, coming off a loss, and I feel selfish. I feel selfish when I wake up in the morning to go run, and like when I tell them that, like, I need to focus because I'm getting ready for this fight when my father-in-law can't even scratch his nose if he wants to, you know. So that was like something that like really weighed heavy on me, is like, how can I be selfish in my training when my father-in-law is like fighting for his life, you know. And like I really struggled with that because I felt like it was like I shouldn't have been training for a fight. I should have been there for him, you know. We should have been there for him. Our whole family should have, you know. So, and like my husband, he's just like taking the brunt of it. He's the rock for everybody. He's the rock for them. He's the rock for me. So he broke, and that was like really hard for me to see because he's usually the rock for me, you know. And he broke in what way? He's been in the military. He's been overseas. He's like did door-to-door convoys while he's in Iraq and worked in the prisons and stuff. And so like he has PTSD, but I've never seen him. I think he was just trying to hold it in for so long, and I was trying to like tell him like, you gotta let it go, you know. And he doesn't want anybody to see that, you know. And he's probably upset that I'm saying this now, but like it was just like in our brand new house that we're supposed to be like super excited of having, and I remember him going outside and just looking up at the stars, and like I went out there to try to like comfort him, and he just was like, you should just go to bed, like, you know. And he just stayed out there, and he broke down, you know. And then maybe like a couple days later, he called me, and he didn't know what was wrong, but he said that his lips started going numb and that his fingers started tingling and his heart was pounding. He was having a panic attack, but he didn't know, like he'd never had one ever before in his life. And like it freaked him out, and right now he's like a financial advisor, so he's like, he put all this like extra life insurance on it. Like he just like freaked out, and he just didn't know like how to deal with it all, because he's usually the one that takes care of everything, but he couldn't fix what was happening. It is what it is, you know. So I think that's what frustrated him the most. And
how did you handle that? I mean, you're still training every day, your husband's going through this, your father-in-law. How were you able to handle it all and stay focused somewhat?
He was trying to hide it from me because he didn't want me to get distracted. You know, he's also in my corner, and we just stayed close in touch, and there were so many things going on that had to get taken care of. That's how we handled it. We just took care of what needed to get taken care of, you know. And we would talk to his parents, and His dad's situation became motivation for us to push forward. You know, like all the small minor things that he was accomplishing, whether it was, you know, moving his fingers or being able to get in an actual wheelchair, like that was a huge accomplishment for him. And so we kind of just, you know, rallied behind each other. They rallied behind me getting ready to fight, and we rallied behind him every day, like in his PT progress, you know. And so that's kind of how we dealt with it.
How's he doing now?
So he's home now. They converted the house and made it like accessible. He's home now and he's doing PT. The doctor that saw him originally, the one that said that he would never, the doctor said he'd be paralyzed from the neck down, and was really shocked at his progression. So now he's in a wheelchair. He has movement in his hands. He's doing PT in the water, and we're just hopeful.
One day at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So during that whole fight camp, 8-10 weeks, how did it end up? Were you able to fight well? Were you able to, I mean, how did you focus on fight day without feeling like this selfishness or like this lack of care or all the things you're feeling?
I felt great. Like I really did have a good camp, despite everything that happened, you know. My weight was good. I felt stronger than ever. But I did feel distracted, you know. And usually it's okay to distract yourself a bit, but if you distract yourself too much, you don't allow yourself to deal with what's really in front of you, which was a fight.
You get kicked in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't deal with that, and it cost me the fight.
It
you
did.
know, yeah. I lost the fight, and I mean, like I said, there are so many different things that go into it. Like I said, I felt great. I had a great camp. We had a great game plan, but there were also moments where I wasn't focused on the fight because I in my head I pictured this movie ending where, you know, Grandpa Macho was gonna see me win the fight. I was gonna get on the mic and I was gonna say, you know, this is for you, Grandpa, and he was gonna get up out of the wheelchair, you know, in a miracle. And like I had these like dreams and like fantasies of like it being that okay, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
You lost.
I lost my fight. I was beat up.
He was still struggling.
He was still struggling. I was in the hospital until 1 o'clock in the morning.
Your husband's having breakdowns.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's life.
Yeah.
And so.
What was the next step you made after that fight? Did you give yourself a break and relax? Did you get right back into training? Did you beat yourself up?
Yeah.
Everything. You got a manicure, you beat yourself up, you were training, everything.
I probably ate like 5 tubs of ice cream in one sitting.
Oh man, I've been there many times.
I did beat myself up. There was a lot of like introspective, like thinking, trying to break down, trying to figure out what went wrong. And then, like I said, when my coach was just like, kind of just like, you have to let it go. You have to move on.
Yeah.
And when we decided to move on, we just, you know, really took the time to focus on family and just look. I don't know how to explain it. Like I really was like, I wasn't present. You know, I was present somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So I had to understand that. Like I had to understand that I needed to be present, and that that's just the way the cards were dealt for me. And I can't be upset about it. And I have to move forward from it.
Yeah.
Like,
how do you get back to keeping your mental strength after an injury, a bad loss, or something like this happening? How do you get back to focus, mental strength, confidence when it's seemingly gone?
yeah, it's like digging yourself out of a hole. You just have to do it like, like one step at a time. And it really is, you have to consistently work at it, I think, because it's easier to listen to the voices in your head and to the media about all the negativity. I don't know why it's so much easier to let the negative stuff creep into your brain than it is to fight that and to be positive. But you really do have to fight it. Like, it really is a work in progress.
Yeah.
So every time I start to think negative thoughts, I just take a deep breath and tell myself confidence.
Yeah.
And I try to focus on the small picture. I don't look at the big picture. It's like trying to tell yourself that you're going to get up a mountain in one day. You're just not, So it's just like one step at a time. You go to practice, and today I'm going to work on my jab, And if I get punched a million times, it's okay, because I worked on my jab, and I know that I landed 10 good jabs. And when I focus on when I have a small goal and I focus on that, then I'm less likely to let those other things that went wrong cloud my brain.
What's the greatest lesson your mom taught you that has supported you in getting where you're at?
My mom has always been, like I was saying, she's like really hard on me, but it's all from love. And to be honest, I think that's probably the biggest thing I can take away from that is like if I can take criticism from my mom, then I should be able to take it from anybody else.
Not many people can take it from their mom.
If my mom is sitting here telling me that I did a bad job and I still love her and she still loves me, then I can take it from anybody else.
Yeah,
Exactly. So the ability to take in the things that she's saying, even though they're super negative sometimes, and to know that it's coming from a place of love. Like, okay, like she'll tell me literally my last fight, the week before my fight, she's like, Michelle, you need to put your right hand up, okay? You always get punched in the face on your right side all the time. Punch in the face on the right side. You get beat up all the time. Like a week before my fight, I'm like, really don't need to be hearing that.
I know this too.
Yeah,
my coach is telling me I can watch the film. Yeah,
yeah, or she'll tell she's really good. I'm kind of nervous. Did you see her muscle? Really big, really tall.
Man.
I'm scared.
Oh wow.
And she, those are the things that she tells me. I'm not sure if she thinks that it's gonna give me confidence, but I've been able to take the things that she tells me, and like I said, knowing that it's coming from a place of love, instead of getting angry and pent up about the things that she says, just taking a deep breath and kind of working it through my machine and transforming it into confidence.
Yeah. What's the greatest lesson your dad taught you about being a better woman?
My dad would always tell me to never let anybody get in my way of my dreams, not even myself. And I think that's probably the biggest thing, because I do. I allow myself to... I sabotage myself a lot, because I don't know, because I don't think I deserve it, because I don't think I'm ready, because I'm scared of success. But that's probably the biggest thing best thing my dad taught.
What would make you feel like you deserve it or that you're ready?
I talked about this with my sports psychologist, and I finally came to a place of content with that answer. And it goes to the idea of being great. I would always tell him, and it might be because of my martial arts background and my upbringing, but it's like, well, first you have to get your white belt, yellow belt, orange belt. There are steps to this before you become a black belt, you know? So in my mind, it's like, before I become a champ, before I become Holly Holm or you know, Muhammad Ali, like, I have to go through these steps. And I was telling my sports psychologist that, his name is Dr. Will Shandon, and he said, do you think that when Muhammad Ali was a champion that he still had things to work on? And of course he did. Everybody always has things to work on. And then he said, but do you think that stopped him from being great in that moment? And it didn't, you know? So I've finally allowed myself to accept the greatness of myself in the present moment, while still knowing that there are things that I have to improve on, or not have to, but want to, right? So that's been my biggest thing, is like giving myself that opportunity to be great now while I'm still fixing my flaws.
The permission to achieve it now, and not like, well, I have to wait until I hit these steps.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What do you want your daughter to know about you? What type of example do you want to set for her? And if she was proud, if you wanted her to be proud of one thing about you, what would that be?
I hope it's that, you know, throughout everything, that I never let go of my dreams, you know, and that a big one is actually having her. You know, I had her in the middle of my career, so there was a lot of unknowns. Can I go back into fighting? Will I want to go back into fighting? Will I be good enough to go back into fighting? And I did, and I was more successful after the fact.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because I had a reason. You know, before it was obviously a passion of mine, but after having her, it was like, I can't just fight because I enjoy it. Like, it has to be a career. I have to make an impact. I have to be able to make it something that can support my family financially, you know. Yeah, I don't know. My dad has also been like has always told me like that your actions speak louder than your words. And so I think that by pursuing my dreams, it'll show her more than me telling her, go after your dreams, baby. You know, like, you can do it.
Yeah,
So.
that's cool. This is called the 3 truths, and I ask everyone this question at the end. So imagine this is your last day many years from now, and it's your last day on Earth. You're as old as you want to be, and you've achieved every dream you want. You've got the family you want, you've traveled, you've done it all. But whatever you've done, you have to take it all with you. So all of your work.
So am I going to a different planet, or
you're dying?
Okay.
It's your last day on Earth, right?
Okay.
Unless we've evolved some way and you go to some other planet, yeah. It's the last day on Earth, right? It's the last day people will see you, and you've done it all. But for whatever reason, no one has access to your information anymore, or the things you've said, or this interview, or your work, your videos. They can't watch anymore. But you get to write down on a piece of paper the 3 things you know to be true about all of your experiences, from being a mother, a wife, a daughter, a fighter. Everything you've done boils down to 3 truths that you would leave behind for people to be remembering you by. What would you say are those 3 lessons or 3 truths that you would share?
Okay. So, I would say that it's important to be a person of action, to not just dream and keep your head in the clouds, but to actually do. I would say that another one would be to truly invest in the people that matter to you. And when I say invest, I mean your time and your blood and your sweat and your tears and your heart. Because so many times we invest in the wrong things. We invest our time in the wrong things, and when it's all said and done, that's a lot of people's biggest regrets.
Yeah.
And you can't take time back, you know. And I would say the last thing would be that we're all gonna run into challenges and adversities. That's just the way the world works, and but to take it, to let your circumstances, to let your adversities, to let your challenges be the wind that strengthens your character, that strengthens the roots of your soul, you know, and to not let the wind break you, but to let it strengthen you.
Mm-hmm. Those are powerful.
I think.
Yeah, those are great. I want to acknowledge you for a moment, because from the moment I met you until now, you've shown up strong and vulnerable. You've shown up loving and passionate. And I think you're an incredible example of someone who is doing it all. You've got an incredible daughter, incredible family. You're giving, you're compassionate. All these things you're doing, and you're fighting for your dreams in a respectful way. And I think it's an incredible example of how to be a powerful woman in today. And so I want to really acknowledge you for all that you're doing and all the inspiration you have in the world.
Thank you.
And thanks for sharing everything today.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Is there any final thing you would like to share or wish we talked about that we haven't talked about?
No, I just like to thank you, you know, because I think sometimes I try to shy away from the hard questions, and it's nice to be forced, gently forced to answer those questions. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. Encouragement.
Where can we connect with you online?
I'm at Karate Hottie MMA, and I'm probably the most active on Instagram.
Okay, cool. You have a website as well? Or?
I do have a website, but I'm not active on it.
Yeah.
I've really been trying to put more effort into my YouTube channel. I'm putting up like vlogs and tutorials and stuff like that. So
Karate Hottie MMA on YouTube as well.
I think so, or it's Michelle Waterson, the Karate Hottie, something with the Karate Hottie in it.
We'll find it. Yeah,
You'll find
we'll
it.
link it up for you. Very cool. Final question then is, what's your definition? Well, actually, first, when's your next fight?
No, I don't have any fights scheduled.
No fights right now.
I don't have any fights scheduled.
So how can we be in tune to that if we want to watch a fight? Just watch you on Instagram, you'll announce it, all that stuff.
Yeah, I'll keep everybody posted on Instagram.
Okay.
Summer's kind of busy. I'm out here in LA, gonna be behind the desk, so it's something I'm trying to pursue.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then just continuing to get better as a martial artist, and hopefully, I'm guessing September timeframe is when I'll fight again.
September timeframe. And where are you based? What city?
I'm in Albuquerque.
And do you do workshops there as well if someone wanted to come to a workshop?
I don't, but I will.
You will. Got it. Okay. So they can reach you on Instagram, they can message you there, or they can email you on your site.
Yeah.
If they want to do something. Okay, cool. Final question then, what's your definition of greatness?
I think we kind of touched on it earlier, but yeah, the ability to accept the greatness in who you are at this present moment with all your flaws, but to also have the hunger and desire to want to grow and evolve each day.
Michelle, thank you. Appreciate it.
Bam.